Hey, I'm Chris Ralph, the professional prospector, and today I'm doing some dry washing. I'm out here in northern Nevada. I'm actually on a claim owned by a friend of mine and doing a little dry washing. Now, I've done videos on dry washing before, but I've not done one in a while, and I thought I'd catch up with some of you guys and show you how useful dry washing is. Now, we're gonna go through the whole thing on this, talk about the process, talk about where I'm digging. Now, with any placer kind of going after stuff, you need to be creative in where you're digging. You need to choose the right places because that's going to get you the best gold. And if you're thinking about things in advance, you're going to have the best results. Now, we're going to go through the whole thing. And like I say, I'm going to take this is a dry washer, and I'm going to take some of my tailings and run through and see, you know, dry washing, you know, does better in some places than others. And, you know, if you have coarser gold and less clay, you're going to have generally better results with coarser gold because it's easier for the dry washer to recover, and less clay, you know, that makes problems. You know, if a little flake of gold sticks to a rock like this with the clay, and that's just going to roll right out into your tailings. Even if it sticks to a little dirt clod, you know, if there's a little dirt clod that goes through your dry washer, dirt clods are the enemy of good recovery on your dry washer. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take some of the stuff that's gone through the dry washer, the fines that goes through my dry washer, and then I'm going to take them home and I'm going to actually run them through a recirculating sluice. That'll be a whole separate video, but it'll kind of give you a feel for, you know, how dry washing works. Now, I've done dry washing with coarser gold and had great results. I've had results where I calculated once, it was like 97% recovery, but that's with coarse gold and with minimal clay. This place, I've got lots of clay and really fine gold. So with the clay and the fine gold, you know, I might not be getting that good a recovery. That's why I'm going to kind of take some of it home and run it through a wet sluice process, a recirculating sluice, to see what I'm losing. I'm sure I won't be getting any 97% recovery. But the other thing that's the enemy of good recovery with your dry washer is having wet material. If your dirt that you're processing, if the soil, sand that you're processing is moist, that again leads to more dirt clods and stuff, and it's the enemy of good recovery. Well, luckily for me on this trip at least, this stuff is really dry, and I'm going to show you me, you know, running the dry washer, and we'll talk about it. But it's really dusty. That's one of the things about dry washing. When you've got lots of clay and the material's really dry, you're gonna have dust. And when I show you me running the dry washer, you're gonna see there's lots of dust. And part of the trick with that is staying upwind. You know, but right now I'm not getting a lot of wind. And so, you know, it'll push one way and the dust will go, so I'll get on upwind, and then the wind will change and blow the other way, and then all of a sudden I was upwind and now I'm downwind. It's when the winds are light and variable, it's hard to stay out of the dust. So you do the best you can. That's all you can do, is the best you can. But I'm working a kind of a creative spot. I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to show you running my dry washer. This is a Keen that runs on a 12-volt battery system. It's basically the 12-volt motor is the kind of thing that runs the windshield wipers in your car. Anyway, it runs a belt and spins the thing, and it's we call these a bellows type dry washer, as opposed to a continuous blow type. And I'm going to get into that, different types of dry washers. In fact, let's take a look right now and compare bellows type, which is what this is, to the continuous blow, you know, that has like a small lawnmower engine motor that runs it. Let's take a look at those and kind of talk about them, comparing the different kinds of dry washers.
There are basically two kinds of dry washers, or two general kinds, and one is the bellows type, which this is a drawing, an old drawing. The guy on the right is turning a crank, and it causes a bellows to pump air up through the dry washer. This is the kind of dry washer I have, and in a minute I'll give you a chance to see it puffing and making dust, but there's a bellows underneath there, and each spin of the big wheel to the right makes the bellows puff up once, and it goes fairly quickly, so it's puff, puff, puff. I'll show you in just a minute. The other main type is this. It basically has a motor and, of course, a duct tube that blows a continuous airstream up in under the sluice area. The hopper and the sluice part are pretty much the same, but the continuous blowing makes a difference. Instead of a puff, 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 it's a continuous whoosh that goes along as the motor goes. Usually it requires a gasoline motor, and so you have to have gas and, of course, the heavy motor and everything else to make it run. There are larger versions of the continuous blower type, like I just showed you, but there are also smaller ones like these that run on, you can see on the right, a leaf blower type motor system. There are even homemade ones like this one. This is, I believe, someplace in Mongolia, and he's got a little motor there and a homemade dry washer set up to recover the gold in the gravels there. Now, if you're interested in making a dry washer, I'm going to put a link up to it in just a second. Now, the trick to these continuous blower types is that where the air from the motor comes in underneath the sluice, there's a little fan thing there, and they have a weight attached to this fan blade. And that makes the thing, it turns it into an eccentric and makes it vibrate. As the fan spins, the sluice box area will shake. The bellows type has its own shake that's imparted by the puff, puff, puff of the bellows, but the continuous type has to have some sort of eccentric like this to shake the material so the gold vibrates down in the sluices.
So you see, I got my bellows type because it's really portable, and that kind of explains why I'm using this one today. Now, I'm going to show you the thing running, and you're going to see the dust. You're going to see it, and you're going to see me digging. I'll show you the digs and where I'm getting the gold, and we'll talk about it. And then, of course, I'll show you me cleaning up and the gold that I'm getting out of that. And I've dry washed here before, and even with the dry washing, I've gotten pretty decent gold dry washing here. So I expect to do okay, but I expect to get some more. I'm guessing off the top of my head, and we'll see in the next video when I wet wash all this stuff. I'm expecting to be getting 60% maybe recovery, that I'm losing 40% of the gold that's going into my dry washer because it's really fine. And there's a pretty decent amount of clay in this stuff. So there are dirt clods, and that causes problems. So let's get going. Let me get into, I've done a little bit of work here, but I'm just gotta dig some more and see how it comes out. So let's get going with dry washing, a great technique to find gold. If you're in the desert, you know, there's no flowing water anywhere near here. And so you kind of got a choice of a dry washer or metal detecting, and the gold here is really fine, so it's too small to see with a metal detector. So what you're going to end up with is dry washing or nothing. And like I say, I've done okay here before. So let's take a look, and you guys can think about dry washing. I'm kind of breaking up some little roots here because there's dirt in them. You know, any kind of dirt clods or roots that lock up the dirt, that's going to be something that's, you know, just going to go right over the screen and into the tailings. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about too is metal detecting. Metal detecting does go with dry washing. Here where the gold is so fine, I mean, literally almost all this gold is, you know, 50 mesh, 20 to 50 mesh is about the size of the gold that's here. So it's kind of too small mostly for a metal detector. So I haven't brought my metal detector out today just because I know the gold here, I've dry washed here before, and it's too small to be seen with a metal detector. But generally speaking, when the gold is a little coarser, like some of the places where I've had a lot of success, I've found patches with metal detectors and then dry washed them, and had great success with that. And I've gone to places where I've dry washed and then metal detected the tailings and even the hole in front of me, and had great success finding nuggets with the metal detector in and around the dry washer. So the dry washer and the metal detector go together. And that's one of the things I want to emphasize. Let's take a look at metal detectors and talk about metal detecting and dry washing going together.
This is what I mean by coarser gold. You see, the pieces on the left, the bigger pieces, were found with a metal detector. But almost always, when you find coarser stuff with your metal detector, there's going to be some fines in there too. And if you've found a concentration where you've got a number of nuggets close to each other, well, you might as well pick up the fines, because a lot of times, like you can see from this picture, the fines outweigh the bigger, coarser pieces. And so you can bring in your dry washer and get all those fines that really add up. The other thing you can get with a metal detector is things you just can't see in the bedrock. Now, I cleaned this bedrock pretty good, and if I went back in there with, say, a whisk broom, I'd pick up a little more material and probably get some more fines. But even once cleaned off with a whisk broom and it's super clean, or at least to the eye it appears that way, there may be small nuggets in cracks and stuff that you can't even see. And I've found nuggets with my metal detector in holes that I thought I had cleaned out pretty good, down to almost about 1/4 of an ounce. I've found pieces that are that large that were just in a little crack and hidden, and you couldn't see it in the dirt, but it had worked its way in there. And so the metal detector will help you see into cracks and crevices and parts of the bedrock that you just can't otherwise see.
All right, let's get to digging, and I'll show you that, and where I'm digging, and we'll talk about what I'm digging in. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is where I'm digging. And there literally is a vein structure that goes right through here, and it goes back this way, it goes on this way, and so I'm digging literally right on top of the vein, the dirt that sits on top of the vein. And over here, we've gotten some pretty good gold out of it. My friend whose claim this is, he's gotten some real nice gold out of it. So I'm digging all the dirt here that's on top of the vein. It'll show him what the vein looks like, because it's sort of buried in dirt. But the dirt that's coming out of here is going to be stuff that has gold in it from the vein has decomposed or, fallen apart or whatever. And it will show that there's gold that's been released on the top of the vein, and that loose stuff is what I'm going to run through my dry washer. Okay, so I'm digging over the vein structure. I got my buckets for my dirt, and the vein actually comes through here and makes a little bit of a jog this way, but I'm digging in here, pulling out the dirt. And I'm figuring this stuff is going to be pretty good for gold. It's not all that exciting watching somebody dig, so I'm going to cut forward and show basically filling up the buckets, which is the next step. Once I've dug enough dirt, the dirt gets to where it's kind of in the way, and so that's when it's time to fill up the buckets. So, oops, always have gloves. That's the thing. You're reaching into this, you might end up with a scorpion or something else. Even just a sharp, stickery, piece of a plant. So gloves are good. And then I just push the material into my bucket. Once I've got a good bucket full, you can see how dusty it is just moving the bucket. Once I've got a good bucket full, I go to the next bucket, keep filling them up. Well, filling buckets isn't that exciting either, so let me cut to when I've got the buckets all full and I'm ready to run the dry washer. Okay, I've got some material dug. It's time to turn on the dry washer, get it going, and start making dust and getting gold. So let's get to it. Here I'm just doing a simple connection. Now this rubbing the material on the screen is breaking up dirt clods. That's what I'm doing. Breaking up the dirt clods, and I'll see any bits of root or whatever, make sure that I get the dirt out of them. Material falls through the screen. There's kind of a hopper here that slowly feeds it into the dry washer. I will show you the dry washer, the sluice section in a minute. But this is the top part, the screen, feeding it in, making sure you don't have a lot of dirt clods. You can see it makes a lot of dust. I'm using a lithium-ion battery that I bought on Amazon. It's powerful and it does the job, and it has more than plenty of juice to last for a day of dry washing. And of course, with a day of dry washing, you spend a certain amount of time digging, and of course when you're digging, you're not running the dry washer, you're only running it when you're feeding material. Okay, time to feed some more. Okay, 1 bucket down out of 4. Here's some roots. I'll take the roots and kind of shake them on the screen, make sure whatever dirt was in the roots gets off. More roots. Make sure any dirt clods get broken up, and that's good for another bucket. I will empty 1 bucket into another, so each bucket then has half a bucket in it. Just because it's easier to lift, easier to control, so I don't accidentally spill something. I'm trying to stay upwind. Seems to be blowing mostly that way, so stay upwind, avoid the dust. You're going to get some dust, but if you plan it right, you'll avoid most of it. One of the things you can see about dry washers when they're running right is if they're running right, you can process a lot of material pretty quick. It's as fast or faster than a sluice box. Another root. Up. Next bucket. well, that's probably enough of showing you how the top part of the dry washer works. Let's look at the lower part. All right, let's take a look at how the back end of the dry washer works. Basically, there's a riffle here, but instead of having a solid between the riffles, there's actually a cloth underneath the riffles, and as the bellows puffs, you get a puff of air through the cloth, and that helps lift the material. The lightest, the clay, lifts the most easily. The more dense stuff, like the gold or any black sand, bits of pyrite, that kind of stuff, that will not be lifted as much and will tend to settle behind the riffles. Let me show you a close-up of these riffles without dirt on them so you can see and we can talk about how it actually works.
Here's what the riffle section looks like. On the far right, there's a metal pan, and that's the material comes down out of the feed box and drops onto that. And then as it moves downhill from right to left, it goes over these, you see black lines. There's an angled line, piece of metal, and that's the riffle. And then the black section there is the underlying, it's a black muslin cloth that's fairly porous so the air can come up through it. And so with each puff of the bellows, air puffs up through and the lighter material gets blown away and continues on down, whereas heavier materials will get caught in front of the riffle and the air won't be sufficient to move them down.
Now let's watch them in action. I'll turn the thing back on, hook up the connection. Like I say, it does make a lot of dust. Can't really see much through the dust, can you? That's why I showed you the pictures. Right now there's not a lot of breeze, and so the dust is just kind of spreading out and actually heading toward the camera. I'm gonna run a little more dirt and then we're gonna clean it out. So let me run some dirt. I won't show you that on camera, but then I'll show you the clean out, okay? Okay, when I'm ready to clean out, I will run it for a minute or so just to get out any excess material. After I've cleaned it out as best as possible, make sure that I'll empty whatever's in the hopper into there. And then there's a little wing nut type thing here at the bottom. That's what holds the sluice box in place. Put that in your pocket because you don't want to lose it. And then the tray just lifts out. Okay, there it is. There's my tray full of concentrates from the dry washing. I get a bucket, and then I will usually pour the bucket in this way, and I will oftentimes look to see if I see any gold. Not seeing any gold really doesn't mean a lot, especially when you have really fine material like this. I don't expect to have any nuggets, and that's not a nugget, but I'm sure I will have gold in this. It's just a matter of it's so fine that it's going to be hard to see. When you have coarse gold and you're running it in a dry washer, you will see the coarse gold up front in the first couple of riffles, and that's always a really good sign. So we're just cleaning this out. Now you can see the riffles, how they go up here, and you have the cloth at the front that the air blows through and material gets stuck up against the riffles there. That's how your dry washer works. Then when you're ready to put it back, I will stick my head here, kind of clean off the excess dirt, and then put the riffles back in. There's a catch that you have to get it up above. Now it's in. Now the reverse procedure with the wing nut. Wing nut goes back in to hold the sluice box in place. Because I stuck it in my pocket, I didn't lose the wing nut. If the wing nut falls in the dirt, you're going to be searching around for it. Get it nice and tight. Now you're ready to start running gravel again. And that's where we're at. I'm going to run some more gravel. You've seen the process. I'll run some more gravel, and then we'll take the concentrates out, and at home I will pan this all out and show you what gold I got out of it. All right, well I'm back at home. I've got a pan and got a tub full of water here. I got my cons from dry washing the other day. Let's pan it out and see how well we did. Look, you can still see the dust. All right, I'm gonna roll this out. I'm gonna do a little at a time. Little at a time, not to overdo it. Remember I said this is very fine gold. It's a fine mesh, it's not coarse. This is stuff that's pretty fine. Like I say, most of it is between 20 and 50 mesh, which is fairly fine gold. Sure, there's stuff finer than that, but first thing I'm going to do is break it all up and make sure there's no pockets of dry dirt in there. Break up any dirt clods. And like I say, I'm going to go through it slowly. I'm not going to, you know, slosh it all around and just say, hey, whatever gold I get, you know. If you're doing fine gold, you want to take it easy. No matter what some other YouTuber has to say that you can just slosh around stuff. No, if you're doing fine gold, you need to go slow. And you need to shake down frequently. What happens is as you wash the lighter material off, you shake it down, the heavies go down, but they don't just like instantly drop to the bottom, they move down a little bit. And then you wash the lighter material off, like I'm doing here. Washing lighter material off. And then shake it down again. Allows the heavy stuff to move downward again, and then you wash off lighter material. Again, you worked hard for the gold you're getting, the fine gold. You don't want to mess with it and make it You don't want to send it out to you want to send it out into the tails. You want to be sure that you get the gold that you worked so hard for. And with gold currently today, it's over $2,400 an ounce. Every once in a while you need to stir it up because it'll get set. That's another reason, is this stuff will kind of set in there if you shake it, if there's any clay, and then the stuff that's on top won't be able to work down because the stuff underneath has kind of set up a little bit. It's not really cemented, but it's gotten hard. Take the bigger pieces out. Again, wash and shake, wash and shake, wash and shake. With this little handful, I'm getting close down to the gold, and actually I see a little tiny bit of gold in there already. So I'm going to basically move away from the riffles. These riffles actually, when you're working real fine stuff and you get down to the smallest stuff, the riffles will get in your way. So I'm switching over to the non-riffle side. And we definitely got some gold in there. All right, well, this process of panning all through this takes a while, so let me continue on without the camera being on, and we'll get down to when I processed pretty much the whole thing, and I can show you what gold I've gotten out of this. Oh yeah, there's a nice little piece. Yeah, definitely gold in here, so, and definitely something you want to take time to go through. Yep. Little wire golds even, yeah, little bits of wire. So let me process the rest of the cons and I'll bring you back in just a second. Okay, I panned through, and you know, rather than finish my panning in that muddy tub, I've cleaned out and gotten nice clean water so I can see what's going out of my pan more clearly, and I'm continuing to shake and move the light stuff off carefully. Plus, with this other pan, I can always repan the material that goes into the pan in case I'm going to lose a little bit. But I continue to shake off and shake off. Let the heavy stuff settle. Let the light stuff come to the top. Do my panning gently because I'm not trying to get anybody wet. I'm just trying to get the gold out. Going slow. Couple of little pebbles left in here. There's a lot of oxidized pyrite cubes. They're not very big, but they are definitely in here. I have seen some little bits of wire gold, which is real nice. You can see I'm getting down to the black sands, and the black sands are, at least in part, this oxidized pyrite. Looking good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple pieces in there. Might be large enough that it could be seen on a metal detector. Have to take a look at all that stuff close up. Maybe a few little pieces of rust in here too. Just quick, one of the things I want to go over is that when I get down to the black sand and I use a magnet, I always go over it with a real weak magnet to begin with. This is an old speaker magnet. It's not very strong. I mean, you can get those rare earth magnets and they'll just suck all kinds of stuff up. But with a real weak magnet like this, it's much less likely to suck up a whole bunch of black sand and pull gold with it. Or even if the gold has a little bit of magnetite attached to it, a speck or two, it won't suck it up with the weak magnet. Now sometimes when I have a lot of black sand, I'll go over it with the weak magnet and then later go over it with the small magnet, but I'll get most of the stuff up, most of the black sand out with the weak magnet. And that way I'm not pulling stuff that really shouldn't be pulled because I've got a super powerful rare earth magnet. So a cheap crummy old magnet that's not very strong. It's a thing to help you get your gold out of the black sand a little bit easier. It's one of my tips. Okay, so now we'll go to the to see the final gold.
So here's the gold that I ended up with. It's just a hair under 0.4 of a gram, which is not as much as I was hoping for. But remember I said that this stuff at this place is very much fine gold, and I got the little chunkies, I think, and a little bit of the fine gold, but I think that in the tailings there's a lot of fine gold to be had. And so as an experiment, I'm going to be taking all the tailings from this event when I was out there dry washing and then wet washing them here at home in a recirculating sluice. So I will be able to see, what my percentage recovery dry washing, and, like I said earlier in the video, I don't think it's going to be a real grand result that I get a high percentage with the dry washer. Now, one of the things I want to note for all types of gravity-based or density-based recovery is just because you get some small gold doesn't mean you're getting all the small gold. There is some small gold, some very small gold in this 0.4 of a gram, but I think that as far as the majority of the small gold, I'm not getting it. So, this is the result, and this is part of the experiment to see how well I'm doing. And we'll have that next video where I wet wash the material and show you the results. I'll have that for you here shortly. It'll be a week or two until I get it out, but I will have that for you, and we'll talk about the results of dry washing versus wet washing. Now, in all of prospecting, whether you're out there with a dry washer, metal detecting, sluice box, pan, dredging, whatever you're doing to find gold, the key to success really is what you know and the knowledge that you have. And I wrote a book to transfer to you guys my decades of experience. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book. It's called Fistful of Gold. Let's take a look right now. So this is my book, Fistful of Gold. You can see it's an encyclopedia distilling down my 45 plus years of prospecting experience plus my degree into the parts that you need to know. I spent most of 10 years writing this. It was not just a simple effort that, I sat down and wrote it. You can see it's like 250,000 words. It's not something you're going to read through in a day or maybe even a week or more. But it's got a lot of information and reference material that you can come back to. You can read it once and read it again and get more out of it because there's just that much depth of material in this. I wrote this book because I want you to have the skills to go out and find fistfuls of gold for yourself. And if you have the skills and know what you're doing and get out in the field and make a real effort, you can find significant gold. It's not easy. I'm not going to tell you that because, gold, it wouldn't be, close to $2,000 an ounce, which is what it is right now. It wouldn't be so expensive if it was easy to find. It's not easy. You just can't walk out into an old gold field and start picking up nuggets. If the gold was easy to see and find, the old timers would have picked it up and taken it themselves. So you got to have skill. You got to know what you're doing. You got to be able to master what it takes to find gold, and you've got to have the persistence and put in the effort to find the material, to find the gold or diamonds or gemstones that you're looking for. Now, book has geology, it has facts about gold, it has stuff about diamonds and platinum, but it's mostly about gold deposits, how gold deposits form, how placer and nuggets form, all the questions you probably wanted to ask. The book is available on Amazon, and I'll put a link to it in the description below, but you can look up on Amazon, Fistful of Gold, and by Chris Ralph, and find this book. Now, the book, if you look at it, it has a very high rating. It has like a 4.7 or 4.8 out of 5, which is really high. I mean, it's hard to please everybody, but I'm close to a 5 out of 5, not far from it, right? So it's been out. I've sold more than 15,000 copies of this book, and I've had tremendous response, tremendous positive response by the people who buy it. And I think if you buy it, you'll be just as happy with it. Now, in addition to my book, I also have a website that I do, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my website and show you some images from the website right now.
Now, my website is nevadaoutbackgems.com, and I'll put a link to the prospecting page, this prospecting encyclopedia page, down in the description below, but you can find it at Nevada Outback Gems. I sell some jewelry, turquoise, other gemstones there. I don't always keep the inventory perfectly up to date, so if you're interested in anything you see, do contact me first before trying to send me money or anything, because I want you to be able to get what you order. But the website has lots of different stories, old adventures, even some stories, true stories from the old-time miners of the 1800s. So I think it's something you'll find interesting.
The other thing I want to go back to is that all my comments, I want you guys to ask questions on the comments for my videos. I answer 100% of the comments that are made on my videos. Now, sometimes if somebody just says, hey, great video, I really enjoyed it, the comment may just be, well, I'm really glad you liked it. Or if it's a simple question. And sometimes I get people who ask me questions, I would take a book to answer that question. And I recommend that they just buy the book. But I answer all my questions. I try to help people as much as I can. I'm here to help you. So if you're interested in gaining the skills, if you're interested in knowing what you need to know to be successful, follow along with me. Subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so that they'll let you know when I come out with new videos, and I try to do that pretty much every Saturday morning. And you'll enjoy with me, you'll come along with me, we'll have an adventure together, and we will find some nice gold and see what it's really like getting out in the woods, or the deserts, or the mountains, wherever we land, wherever the gold is, wherever the diamonds are, wherever the platinum is. Come along, we'll have some fun. And I'll see you real soon on the next video.